Hello again. Welcome to the Dave LewAllen podcast, episode 6 today. We enjoyed the conversation with Kim on our last podcast. Encourage you to check that out on YouTube or your favorite platform for podcasts. We cover sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers on this podcast. And I'm pleased to have with me today Dave Beachnau. He is the Executive Director of the Detroit Sports Commission. And when you're talking about news, we're making news these days because the countdown is on now, Dave, to Detroit hosting the 2024 NFL Draft. Welcome, first of all, and I'm excited about this.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Excited to be here, and yeah, we're now 149 days, but who's counting, to April 25th, and the circus coming into town that we call the NFL Draft, and what an incredible opportunity, and it's a lot of work. There's no question about it, but couldn't be more thrilled, and as I look at it, I relate it back to the early 2000s when Detroit was awarded the Super Bowl, and it was just kind of the catalyst for things to come after that with the Ryder Cup and the All-Star Game and the Final Four and many others, and I look at the draft in the same way. But certainly our city is in a much different place than it is today, so it feels a lot different, in a positive way. We've got a ton of momentum, leading into the 2027 men's Final Four and a few things in between there and a couple things that we're chasing. But yeah, yesterday was a big day with a public update on some of the plans that we have in place. And yeah, we couldn't be more thrilled.
All right, so I want to get into more of the details and the history of how you land an event like this for a city like Detroit. But just the impact itself of what this means. I think people have a pretty good understanding now of just how big the NFL Draft is, and that it's been moved around. Chicago, Philadelphia, Nashville, you name it, right? And now it's going to be Detroit's turn. How big is this?
It's huge, and I've said before, I'm not even sure the NFL realized what this would become when they took it outside of New York. But when you think about tens of thousands of NFL fans who will be traveling to our city, not even to watch a game, right? To watch the draft. That's something in and of itself. But so it's economic impact, of course. I think Kansas City reported 164 million this past year, but the eyeballs on our city, I think 54 million viewers this past year as well. And then, of course, the community impact that comes along with it. Our vision and our priority as we move forward as a Detroit Sports Commission is to make sure that once these, like I said, the circus folds up its tent and leaves town, what's left behind? And we wanted to be sure that there was a legacy in place when we did that. And as we look ahead, that's going to be a priority for us with each of these big events to provide opportunities and for access for our local community, our youth, and others to be a part of or be impacted by the events that come through town.
And you're doing that in this case with a $1 million Living Legacy donation to support Project Play, and then also literacy with Beyond Basics, two important organizations that are going to help the community and kids in particular in the community.
Yeah, that's right. We were very thoughtful and intentional and brought a group of stakeholders in our community together. It's probably been 18 months now when we started this process and really took a deep dive into what are the priorities in our community, what are the needs, and literacy, absolutely. And it's not just Detroit. It's nationwide and worldwide for that matter, and it probably stems back to the pandemic, and it set our kids so far back. So for us to partner with Beyond Basics, we think there's a great opportunity there to start to touch and get kids in a better place from an education standpoint. Then with Project Play, certainly providing access to sport for so many, because there's the pay to play and other dynamics that are involved in amateur and school sports these days. So having access to sports sampling, girls sports is a priority for us. We're looking at doing some girls flag football things around the draft and the high school football event that we do, and even youth coaching. We don't have enough of them to start with, and then those that do just don't have the training or development to really teach our kids, which that's the first touch point they get at a young age from a coaching perspective. I was a father coach, and there are many out there, but certainly, they could use some training. I think it helps everyone.
The impact, yes, will be lasting in that regard, and that's something that you hope to continue with any of the other major signature type events that come our way, like the NCAA Final Four as well, that there will be an opportunity to continue to fund these kinds of efforts with proceeds that come from hosting these events.
That's absolutely right. And, the NCAA has a program in place, Read to the Final Four. And they do that each year in every city that they host the Final Four in. And we'll probably partner with them, ramping up to the Final Four in 2027. But I think there will be some other opportunities around that we'll create ourselves as the local organizing committee that will have a further impact than simply the Read to the Final Four program. While it's important, we want to supersize it, so to speak.
Yeah. And hopefully there'll be that opportunity with the Final Four, and then other events maybe in between and even after the Final Four in 2027.
Absolutely. We have the regional coming up here in this coming March, just a month before the draft, and we've got our sights on a few other events that are in the pipeline, and we can talk about the Big Ten. It's out for bid right now, and
football and basketball.
And we're under consideration for both. We expect that the Big Ten will announce their future sites sometime later in January for 25 through 28. And, in our opinion, it's Detroit's due, right? It's been in Indianapolis since its inception, and so we're hopeful for that and some other things that we've got going on.
As it relates specifically to the Big Ten and the football championship, if for the first time they're looking, you'd have to feel like you got a pretty good shot with the development in downtown Detroit, the additional hotel space, certainly the Ford Field facility.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as I said earlier, we're in a much different place today than we were 5 or 10 years ago. And, so with the Big Ten football championship, obviously preferences for indoor stadiums. And if you look around the Big Ten footprint as it stands today, Minneapolis, Indianapolis, really we feel is our competition. But all bets are off now, as we talked earlier about the expansion of the conference to the West Coast. And so that opens the door for possibly Las Vegas, LA, the Rose Bowl.
Do you anticipate going forward a rotation of sorts like we have with the Super Bowl or some of the other major events, the NFL draft, that one year it's going to be in Indy and one year it's going to be in Detroit, hopefully multiple years, but Minneapolis gets its turn and hey, maybe the Rose Bowl or someplace out west as well.
Yeah, I mean, we would love that. We don't want it every year. We'd love to, but rotation would be great, and we'd appreciate that. And I think too, as I look at it personally, to take the Big Ten football championship to the West Coast, you've got 10 other institutions that are a couple thousand miles from the West Coast, and whoever might be in the Big Ten championship will likely also be going to the football playoff and then a potential national championship game. So from a fan perspective, are you going to travel to Las Vegas or LA for the Big Ten football championship with the thought that you might be going on from there. And it's a similar, mindset, I think, too, with the NCAA basketball tournament. If you have a good team, you might skip the first and second rounds and buy your tickets for the regional with anticipation that, you've only got so much disposable income, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my thought process. Anyway. I'm not sure the Big Ten feels that way.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Las Vegas may be a different story, but I mean, the Rose Bowl still has bowls,
Yeah.
Some of the other venues as well have established games. They could add the Big Ten championship too, but let's keep our fingers crossed for Detroit in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, you mentioned earlier $164 million impact was what was estimated for the draft last year. 300-some thousand people in Kansas City as well. I think Nashville, I'd read reports that maybe they had 600,000 people there.
Yeah.
What would you anticipate? And again, this event is going to be in Campus Martius, downtown Detroit, out to Hart Plaza with activities. What do you expect that we might be able to attract in terms of numbers here?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think we can point to Kansas City from a benchmark standpoint. Also thinking about Kansas City, though, there aren't many NFL markets that are drivable to Kansas City. And that was part of our pitch to the NFL is geographically, if you look at a half a dozen NFL markets that are within 2 to 5 hours, we think there's going to be a huge influx regionally with NFL fans, not to mention the rabid Detroit Lions fans that will be in town. And funny story, when we were in Kansas City this past April, our hotel was just a couple miles from the footprint. We were there a couple days early, and lo and behold, we had Lions fans with their jerseys on in our hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't understand people traveling to a draft, but they do it. It's unbelievable.
For many teams, and including, frankly, for our Lions, for years and years, you would hear that, hey, the NFL draft is our Super Bowl because our team never makes it. So maybe that's a factor in some of that enthusiasm for the draft and what's to come. And if that's the case, come on.
That's right.
We're
Absolutely.
ready for you, right?
Yeah.
And different from Kansas City last year, where the setting was essentially a park, right? Outside of the immediate downtown area. I mean, we're walking distance to everything in the downtown corridor, and that's where this draft is going to take place.
Yeah, that's right. In one contiguous space from Campus Martius all the way down to Hart Plaza. So, and we're equally as excited about the access for our local community, because so many times, these big events that roll into town, if you don't have a ticket, you're shut out. And for us, it's important to have that inclusivity of our community, our residents, our youth to have access. Now, capacity will be limited, but at the same time, we have plans in place to have some satellite activations around the downtown core where people can go and enjoy and watch the draft from, Grand Circus Park and some other locations that will really make them feel like they're part of it.
And there's an NFL experience that's part of this as well, and that will be open and free to anyone who comes down and wants to enjoy the 3-day NFL draft experience?
Yeah, it's the interactive stuff, kick the field goals, but there's also displays with, the Super Bowl trophies and the rings and all those sorts of things. So certainly, there's something for everyone. If you can't get, a sight line of the draft main stage, certainly there are other opportunities to take part in it.
So the planning is immense, certainly. The final footprint is yet to be, signed off on by the NFL. But, this happens next April. But when did these discussions first start? When does the bidding begin? I mean, people see the end result, but they don't see all the work that you and your team and all the other stakeholders in Detroit are involved with to make this happen.
Yeah. Well, the work started 5 years ago when we made our first attempt at securing the draft, and we had a couple of efforts, and you likely a lot of times you don't win that first time around, but certainly when it was announced and awarded to us in 2022, that's when the work really began for us, and having monthly calls with the NFL to start with. They've been in town on a number of occasions, and the uniqueness of the event too is we're not talking about a stadium, right? We're talking about an outdoor space with a lot of things to consider: local businesses, street closures, the impact on the local businesses who may not be able to get access from their customers to. So a lot of those dynamics we're working through, which is a consideration when the footprint's finalized, because one thing we don't want is for those businesses to be shut out of the opportunity.
Yeah, you want them to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. There's traffic issues, there's safety concerns, all of that figures into the detailed planning for an event like this.
That's right, and Chief White talked about it yesterday, and we've been engaged with him and DPD for months now, and everyone's a part of it all along the way, and that's critical that we're all aligned. It's a collaborative effort from the mayor's office on down, and I feel like we're in a really, really good place.
Countdown is on, but again, a key aspect here is that this is free. This event is free, and that there is community opportunity and engagement to be part of it, whether you're right up against the stage or outward from Campus Martius itself.
Yeah, and not only that, a lot of times these events have volunteer opportunities, and the same goes for the NFL draft, although their program is called Teammates. And so that's an opportunity for paid positions. They pay their teammates, which are technically volunteers. So that's a great opportunity as well for our local folks who want to be involved. And we get contacted all the time when these big events are announced that people want to be involved, and that's another way that they could touch and be a part of the NFL draft.
So how does someone need to act either for that opportunity, the Teammates program, or if there's ticketing involved? I mean, do you need to register? I mean, kind of what's the process from I'm a fan, I'm interested in being there and taking in some of the excitement to come. How do I do it?
Yeah, so we've built a website. It's visitdetroit.com/2024 NFL Draft, and all the details to date are available there, including how they can sign up to be a teammate. Eventually, they'll have to, anyone that wants to come down and be a part, get into the footprint of the draft, will have to load the NFL One app to their phone, which registers them as their ticket per se to access the footprint.
So interesting and important steps there. Dave Beachnau, the Executive Director of the Detroit Sports Commission, joining us today on the Dave LewAllen podcast. How about a little bit of history about the Detroit Sports Commission? You're part of Visit Detroit, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau. This isn't the only thing, the NFL draft, as big as it is, that your team is involved with. You've got local events, you've got amateur sports. I mean, you're looking to bring all kinds of events to Detroit. For what purpose?
Well, it's primarily for the economic impact. We serve our hospitality community. We're funded by a hotel assessment in the Tri-County area. So our charge is to use those dollars that we collect and go out and market and sell the region to bring meetings and conventions, leisure travel, and sporting events to the region. You talk about amateur sports and the grassroots piece of it. That's how it all started for us back in the mid-90s when we were chasing AAU basketball tournaments and some of those other youth sports that kind of move around the country on a national level, we started to get some success, and we looked in our own market. When I say that, the sports commission world, we did not have one at the time, and so we made the decision back in 2000 to look at forming our own under the umbrella of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So in 2001, we unveiled the Detroit Sports Commission, which I have led since then. And we've grown over years. It started with one guy, right?
Yeah.
And now we have a team of 6, and from bowling tournaments to volleyball to ice hockey. There are tournaments that go on every weekend around the region. In some cases, they're here because of us, right? And people don't recognize that.
Right.
It doesn't hit the newspaper or other media outlets, but it's impacting the region. It's filling hotels, which is what we're charged with. And then, as time went on, we started to get into the game of starting to chase some of the bigger events. And I think our first major event we hosted was the AAU Junior Olympic Games back in 2003. At the same time, we were bidding on our first Final Four, which we were awarded 409, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. You've had other NCAA championships, wrestling, ice hockey was here. Unfortunately, the Frozen Four with the pandemic and things, but you also, on an amateur level, the high school level, locally, you've got the Zenith Football Classic that you host at Wayne State that you've organized successfully for years now in August.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I'm personally most proud of, because it was an opportunity for us in a way to give back to our community, because so many of these events that we bring to the region are for kids from someplace else, right? And so we best ideas are stolen, and there was an event that was going on down in Cincinnati, the Skyline Chili Crosstown Showdown. And so we mirrored that, and we started it back in 2005 out at Eastern Michigan University with a couple games on a Saturday, and it grew from there. And so we just finished our 18th year. In 2012, we moved to Wayne State, and on an annual basis, we've had anywhere from 6 to 8 games, and I think we've had over 100 high school teams that have participated in over the year, and it's one that now, instead of us trying to convince schools to participate, they're calling us, how do we get in?
Yeah.
And we really try to make it a bowl-like atmosphere for the high school kids, because 95% of those high school football players are never going to move on to the next level, no matter what division it is, right? Yeah. And so it's a big deal for them to play, in a college setting.
All right, so let me ask you this. We've got NFL Draft in 2024 coming up. You mentioned the Final Four in 2027. USGA is going to come back to Oakland Hills. Dave Beachnau has a wish list of other events that Detroit can attract moving forward. Is Big Ten at the top of the list? But what else is there?
Yeah, Big Ten is certainly at the top of the list, and it's active right now for us. So we're hopeful with that. The NCAA is now out in their next cycle of championships for bids, so we're evaluating our strategy with that. So I think they owe us a Frozen Four, right? So
I agree.
That could be in the mix. The Division I Wrestling Championships, which we hosted in 2022. If I could do that every year, that was a home run in every way. And one that people don't pay too close attention to, but is growing in stature, is the Women's Volleyball National Championships, NCAA. They sell out everywhere they go. They had 93,000
in Nebraska.
in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, for a women's volleyball game in the football stadium.
Yeah. And so the Big Ten is strong right now in women's volleyball. So we think that makes a lot of sense for us. It's the third weekend in December each year, so it's a good time for our city when, travel and hotel occupancy isn't real high. So that would be a good one for us. And then we're looking at maybe some Olympic trial events, down the road. Of course, LA will be hosting in 2028, so we're already looking at what might be out there that could make some sense for Detroit.
Well, at one time, and we've had a conversation about this years ago, Detroit bid for a summer Olympic Games, and was close, didn't get it, but it was close. But that's unlikely for sure. But individual Olympic trials events, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and Indianapolis is hosting the swimming trials in Lucas Oil Stadium this coming year, and events like that have grown in magnitude, and so I think there's opportunity with gymnastics and some others that I think would play well in our market, and it helps us be a part of the Olympic movement without actually hosting the Olympics.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about volunteer/paid opportunities for people surrounding the NFL draft. But with all of these events that you host, amateur events, if someone is looking to give back in their life, to volunteer, something that is a worthwhile cause, certainly with all of the amateur events and things that the Detroit Sports Commission brings and hosts here, you have to be in need of many volunteers, aren't you? And what are the opportunities, and how does someone say, hey, I'm interested?
Yeah, there are opportunities, on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the event is on our schedule. Then go to our website, detroitsports.org, and sign up there. And we've got a full list of events that our calendar is on our website, so they can kind of take a look at what might pique their interest. A couple years ago, we hosted the NCAA Division II men's and women's National Golf Championships at the TPC Michigan. So there's different unique opportunities like that people may not think about, or might be a fan or have a certain interest in a sport that we've really got something for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Well, for full transparency, I'm excited to have the opportunity to work with you and your team to do some online reporting surrounding the NFL draft. Very excited about that. Excited that this event is coming to our city for what it will mean from an economic impact, but also that eyeballs of the football world certainly, but of the nation on Detroit for this event. I think it's going to be magical.
Oh, no question about it. And it's our Super Bowl. It is. We'll likely never host a Super Bowl, at least in my lifetime, and this is the next best thing. And as we talked earlier, this event has grown into something that I'm not sure who realized what it would become, and it's
it's
great.
Football, and everybody loves football. I mean, look at the the audiences that these games still attract. Live television, sporting events. I mean, football is king.
Yeah, and fantasy football now is huge, and that plays a factor into it, I think, as well. And
the fact that the Lions have generated their own excitement just adds, I think, another layer to the draft coming in April.
Yeah, no question about it. We keep saying, Kansas City won the Super Bowl last year. Then they hosted the draft. Wouldn't that be something?
It sure would. It sure would. Well, let's hope things stay on track with our Lions. But Thank you for this. Thank you for the time, the opportunity. I share in your excitement for, and I think all residents of Metro Detroit should be as well, for what this means and the opportunity that this provides for the region. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. And we're all in this thing together, right? Yeah. It's a regional effort. It's a collaborative effort with all the stakeholders, all the residents. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and being able to do this for the community is really special.
Yeah, hopefully there are many, many more big events to come.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Beachnau, the Executive Director of the Detroit Sports Commission, joining us today for the Dave LewAllen podcast. Again, find us, YouTube, your favorite platform for podcasts. We appreciate you watching, listening, and supporting this podcast. As always, stay safe, be kind. We'll see you next time.